Rain pelted the cracked window of Emily Carter's fourth-floor apartment in Chicago, a relentless drumbeat that echoed the chaos in her mind. The city's skyline, usually a glittering promise of possibility, was shrouded in gray, as if even the lights of the loop had given up on her. At 32, Emily was supposed to have her life together, a steady job, a decent home, a future for her daughter, Lily. Instead, she sat at her wobbly kitchen table, staring at a laptop screen that had just delivered a gut punch. The email from her boss at the graphic design firm was curt, final: "We've decided to go in a different direction. Your services are no longer needed." 8 years of late nights, scrapped designs, and groveling for client approval, gone in a single sentence. Emily's hands trembled as she reread the words, hoping they'd rearrange into something less devastating. They didn't. Her phone buzzed, jarring her from her stupor. A text from her landlord: "Rent's due tomorrow. No more extensions." "I mean it." Her stomach twisted into a knot. She opened her banking app, $47.32. Enough for a few days of groceries, maybe, but not rent. Not Lily's school fees. Not the new shoes her 8-year-old had been hinting at, her old ones pinching her toes. Emily's eyes stung, but she blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. Not yet. Not in front of the tiny apartment that held her entire world. What would you do if you lost everything in a single moment, and the only person left to believe in you was yourself? She glanced at the corner of the living room, where Lily slept behind a thin door plastered with unicorn stickers. The faint glow of a nightlight seeped out, a reminder of the one good thing Emily had managed to hold on to. Lily, with her unruly curls and gap-toothed smile, was the reason Emily got up every morning, even when the weight of survival felt like it would crush her. But tonight, that weight was heavier than ever. The fridge held half a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, and some questionable yogurt. The electric bill was overdue. And now, no job. Emily's fingers hovered over her laptop, a battered relic from her college days. She opened a freelance site, desperate for a gig, any gig, to tide her over. The screen flickered, then went black. "No, no, no," she muttered, smacking the side. Nothing. She pressed the power button, her heart racing. Still nothing. Her last lifeline, dead. She buried her face in her hands, the smell of cheap dish soap clinging to her skin. The rain outside seemed to mock her, each drop a reminder of how far she'd fallen. She thought of calling her best friend, Sarah, who lived down the hall, but it was past midnight, and Sarah had her own struggles, 2 kids and a husband who worked nights. Emily couldn't burden her. Not again. She thought of her mother, who'd raised her alone in a small Indiana town, working double shifts at a diner to keep them afloat. "Keep moving forward, Em," she'd say, her voice rough but warm. "Even if it's just one step." But her mother was gone now, taken by cancer 3 years ago, and Emily felt like she was betraying her memory with every failure. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her back to the present. A voicemail from Jake, her ex. Her stomach lurched. She hadn't heard from him in months, not since he'd flaked on Lily's birthday party with a half-hearted text about work being crazy. She hesitated, then tapped play, holding the phone to her ear. Jake's voice was smooth, too smooth, like he was selling her something. "Em, we need to talk about Lily. I'm stepping up. I want to be in her life." The words hit like a slap. Jake hadn't stepped up since Lily was born, leaving Emily to navigate single motherhood while he chased his music dreams in dive bars across Chicago. His sudden interest felt like a threat, not a promise. She glanced at Lily's door, picturing her daughter's tiny hand clutching her stuffed elephant as she slept. Emily's chest tightened. She couldn't lose Lily. She wouldn't. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and Emily's gaze fell on a sketchpad by the couch. Lily's latest drawing, a chaotic burst of stars, a rainbow, and 2 stick figures labeled Mom and Me. No Jake. Just the 2 of them, holding hands under a lopsided sun. Emily's throat burned. She'd promised Lily a better life, a stable one, but here she was, failing at every turn. She grabbed her phone again, needing a distraction, and scrolled through YouTube. A thumbnail caught her eye, Elon Musk, mid-speech, his eyes blazing with that relentless, almost manic energy. The title read, Elon Musk's Secret to Success, 1 hour a day. She snorted. Billionaires and their advice. What did a guy like Musk know about her life? But with nothing else to lose, she tapped play. Musk's voice crackled through her earbuds, sharp and unapologetic. Dedicate 1 hour every day to learning something new. Doesn't matter what. Just do it relentlessly. That's how you build a future. 1 hour. It sounded absurdly simple, like a self-help cliché for people with private jets and personal assistants. Emily's life was a treadmill of survival, work, Lily, bills, repeat. Where was she supposed to find an hour? But something in Musk's words, that unyielding certainty, sparked a flicker of defiance in her. She wasn't a quitter. She'd clawed her way through worse, high school bullies, her mother's illness, Jake's abandonment. Maybe 1 hour could be her way out. She grabbed a notebook from the coffee table, its pages half filled with grocery lists and doodles. Her hands shook as she opened it to a blank page and scrawled, 1 hour a day. Start tomorrow. She didn't know what she'd learn, coding, maybe, or a new design skill. Something to make her indispensable, to secure a future for Lily. The pen scratched against the paper, a small act of rebellion against the chaos closing in. The rain outside had nearly stopped, leaving a quiet that felt less oppressive, almost hopeful. Emily's mother's voice echoed in her mind, 1 step, Em. Maybe this was it. She stood, stretching her aching back, and walked to Lily's door. She cracked it open, the nightlight casting a soft glow over her daughter's sleeping form. Lily's curls were splayed across the pillow, her chest rising and falling with each breath. Emily's heart swelled, a mix of love and fear. Jake's voicemail replayed in her head, his voice dripping with false sincerity. She closed the door softly, her resolve hardening. 1 hour a day. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She didn't know it yet, but that decision, scrawled in a moment of desperation, would change everything. Emily returned to the kitchen table, her notebook open, the pen still in her hand. She wrote one more line, for Lily. For me. The words felt like a vow, a promise to the little girl in the next room and to the woman Emily wanted to become. The city outside was quiet now, the storm passing, leaving only the hum of distant traffic. Chicago never slept, and neither would she. Not anymore. Hey, hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The faint hum of Chicago's early morning traffic filtered through Emily Carter's apartment window, a reminder that the world kept moving even when hers felt like it was falling apart. She sat at the kitchen table, the notebook from last night still open, her scrawled vow staring back at her, 1 hour a day. For Lily. For me. The ink had smudged where her thumb had rested, a small imperfection that mirrored her life. She sipped lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug, the bitter taste grounding her as she braced for another day of job hunting, bills, and the gnawing fear of Jake's voicemail. But before she could dive into the chaos, her mind drifted back to where it all began, not here, in the concrete jungle of Chicago, but in the flat, endless fields of rural Indiana, where she'd learned what it meant to keep going. Emily closed her eyes, and the apartment faded. She was 12 again, standing in the cramped kitchen of her childhood home in Elwood, Indiana. The linoleum floor was peeling, and the air smelled of burnt toast and her mother's rose-scented perfume. Diane Carter, a wiry woman with calloused hands and laugh lines etched deep from better days, was flipping pancakes on a griddle, her apron stained with grease. "Keep moving forward, Em," she'd say, her voice rough from years of shouting orders at the diner. Even if it's just one step. Doesn't matter how small. Emily would roll her eyes, her teenage defiance masking the love she felt for her mother, who worked double shifts to pay for school supplies and the occasional art class that Emily begged for. Money was always tight. Elwood wasn't a place of opportunity, it was a town of shuttered factories and fading dreams, where the biggest event was the county fair. Emily's father had left when she was 3, a blurry figure in her memory, and Diane never spoke of him. It was just the two of them, a team against the world. Emily learned early how to stretch a dollar, how to ignore the taunts of kids who mocked her thrift store clothes, how to lose herself in sketchbooks when the weight of poverty felt too heavy. Art was her escape, her way of painting a world where she wasn't the girl with holes in her sneakers. Diane would pin Emily's drawings to the fridge, her tired eyes lighting up. "You're gonna make something beautiful, Em. I know it." But beauty was hard to find in Elwood. High school brought new challenges, bullies who called her trailer trash, teachers who dismissed her dreams of art school as impractical. Emily fought back with grit, earning A's and a partial scholarship to a community college in Indianapolis. Diane celebrated by baking a lopsided cake, her hands shaking from exhaustion. "You're my fighter," she'd said, hugging Emily tight. That memory, sharp and warm, made Emily's chest ache now. Diane had been her anchor, her proof that love could outlast hardship. But cancer didn't care about love. It took Diane 3 years ago, leaving Emily unmoored, with only her mother's words to guide her. Back in the Chicago apartment, Emily's coffee had gone cold. She traced the edge of her notebook, her mother's voice echoing, "1 step." That's what the 1-hour-a-day rule felt like, a step, however small, towards something better. She glanced at Lily's door, still closed, and thought of the other relationship that defined her, Jake. If Diane had been her rock, Jake was her storm. They'd met in college, when Emily was 19 and still believed in fairy tales. Jake was a musician, all charisma and crooked smiles, with a voice that could make you forget the world. He'd play his guitar at open mic nights, dedicating songs to Emily, making her feel like she was the center of his universe. She fell hard, mistaking his charm for commitment. When she got pregnant at 23, just months before graduation, Jake promised they'd figure it out together. But promises were cheap. By the time Lily was born, Jake was gone, chasing gigs in Chicago while Emily stayed in Indianapolis, juggling diapers and design classes. He'd send money sporadically, call even less, and each time he did, Emily felt the sting of betrayal all over again. She'd moved to Chicago 2 years ago, hoping for a fresh start, a better job, a city where Lily could dream big. But the city was relentless, chewing up her savings and her confidence. Jake was still here, playing bars in Wicker Park, living a life that didn't include them. His voicemail last night, "I'm stepping up," felt like a cruel joke. Emily's fingers tightened around her mug. Jake didn't get to waltz back in now, not after leaving her to raise Lily alone. But the fear lingered, what if he tried to take Lily? What if a judge saw Emily's empty bank account and decided Jake, with his new girlfriend and fake stability, was the better parent? She pushed the thought away, standing to rinse her mug. The sink dripped, a steady plink that matched the rhythm of her anxiety. She needed to focus, to start her 1-hour experiment today. But first, she needed a plan. Coding seemed like a good bet, tech jobs were everywhere, and she'd always been curious about it. She'd overheard colleagues at her old job talking about how coding could open doors, even for designers like her. But her laptop was dead, and a new one was out of the question. She'd have to use the library's computers, which meant dragging Lily along after school. The thought exhausted her, but exhaustion was nothing new. Emily crossed the apartment to Lily's room, easing the door open. Her daughter was still asleep, curled under a quilt Diane had made, her stuffed elephant tucked under her arm. Lily's face, soft and peaceful, was a reminder of why Emily couldn't give up. She knelt beside the bed, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. "We're gonna be okay, kiddo," she whispered, though the words felt more like a prayer than a promise. Lily stirred, mumbling something about stars, and Emily smiled despite herself. Her daughter's dreams were big, wild, like the drawings on the fridge. Emily would do anything to protect them. She returned to the kitchen, grabbing her phone to search for free coding resources. The screen lit up with another text from Jake, "Call me. We need to sort this out." Her jaw clenched. She deleted the message, her heart pounding. Jake wasn't her priority, not today. Today was about taking that first step, proving to herself that she could change her story. She opened a browser and typed, "Learn to code free." A list of sites appeared: Free Code Camp, Code Academy, Khan Academy. Overwhelming, but a start. She bookmarked them, her pulse quickening with a mix of fear and excitement. 1 hour. She could do this. The apartment door rattled, and Emily jumped. A knock followed, soft but insistent. She glanced at the clock, 6:47 a.m. too early for visitors. She tiptoed to the door, peering through the peephole. Sarah, her neighbor, stood in the hall, holding a Tupperware container. Emily sighed, relieved, and opened the door. Sarah, a wiry woman with a messy bun and tired eyes, grinned. "Made too many muffins. Thought you and Lily could use some." Her voice was warm, but her gaze lingered, as if she sensed Emily's frayed edges. "Thanks," Emily said, taking the container. The smell of blueberry and sugar wafted up, a small comfort. Sarah hesitated, then lowered her voice. "You okay, Em? You look like you didn't sleep." Emily forced a smile, her instinct to hide her struggles kicking in. "Just a rough night. I'll be fine." Sarah nodded, unconvinced, but didn't push. "You know where I am if you need me." She squeezed Emily's arm and headed back to her apartment. Emily closed the door, the muffins a reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. Sarah had been a lifeline since they'd moved in, a single mom too, who understood the grind. But Emily couldn't lean on her forever. She needed to stand on her own, for Lily, for herself. She set the muffins on the counter and picked up her notebook again, flipping to the page with her vow. 1 hour a day. It felt like a lifeline, fragile but real. She didn't know if it would work, if Musk's rule was just hype or a genuine path forward. But she'd try. For the girl she'd been in Indiana, for the mother she wanted to be, for the future she couldn't yet see. The city outside was waking up, horns honking, buses rumbling. Emily took a deep breath, her mother's voice steady in her mind, 1 step. Today, that step was hers to take. The Chicago morning was gray, the kind of damp, heavy air that clung to your skin and made everything feel harder. Emily Carter stood at her kitchen counter, the notebook with her vow, 1 hour a day. For Lily. For me. Open beside a plate of Sarah's blueberry muffins. Lily was still asleep, her school backpack slouched against the couch, a reminder of the day ahead. Emily's phone buzzed with a job alert, but it was another low-paying freelance gig, barely enough to cover groceries. She ignored it, her focus on the plan she'd scribbled last night: start coding, 1 hour, today. It felt like a lifeline, but also a gamble. Could 60 minutes really change anything when her life was a house of cards, one gust away from collapse? She glanced at the clock, 7:15 a.m. Lily would be up soon, demanding cereal and stories about the stars she loved. Emily's laptop was still dead, a useless brick on the table, so she'd have to use the public library's computers. The thought of dragging Lily across the city after school, weaving through crowded buses and chilly streets, made her head ache. But she'd promised herself 1 hour, and she wasn't backing down. Not today. Emily grabbed her phone and opened the Free Code Camp site she'd bookmarked last night. The homepage was a wall of text, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, words that sounded like a foreign language. She clicked a beginner's tutorial, her eyes scanning terms like tags and attributes. It was overwhelming, like staring at a map with no key. But she remembered her mother's voice from their Indiana kitchen, "One step, M." This was it. She'd start small, just like Diane had taught her. The apartment door creaked as Lily shuffled out, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed elephant dangling from one hand. "Mom, are we late?" Her voice was sleepy, her curls a tangled halo. Emily forced a smile, kneeling to hug her. "Not yet, kiddo. Want a muffin?" Lily's eyes lit up at the sight of Sarah's gift, and she climbed onto a chair, munching happily. Emily's heart twisted. Lily's joy was a bright spot in the storm, but it also reminded her of the stakes. She had to make this work, for her daughter's sake. While Lily ate, Emily pulled on a worn hoodie and packed a bag for the library, her notebook, a pen, and Lily's favorite coloring book to keep her occupied. The plan was to job hunt during the day, get Lily from school, and hit the library for her hour of coding. Simple, in theory. But as she zipped the bag, her phone rang, the school's number flashing on the screen. Her stomach dropped. She answered, bracing herself. "Ms. Carter, it's Principal Nguyen," came the calm but firm voice. "We need to discuss Lily's tuition. It's 2 months overdue, and we can't extend further without a payment plan." Emily's throat tightened. She mumbled an apology, promising to call back with a plan, though she had none. The call ended, and she gripped the counter, the weight of failure pressing down. How was she supposed to focus on coding when she couldn't even keep Lily in school? Lily looked up, her mouth full of muffin. "You okay, Mom?" Emily nodded, forcing cheer into her voice. "Just grown-up stuff, sweetie. Finish up, we gotta get you to school." She couldn't let Lily see her unravel. Not now, not ever. The day passed in a blur of rejections. Emily sent out 10 freelance applications, logos, flyers, social media graphics, but the responses were either silence or offers so low they were insulting. By the time she picked up Lily from school, her head was pounding, and the Chicago wind felt like it was mocking her. Lily skipped beside her, chattering about a science project on constellations, her enthusiasm a stark contrast to Emily's dread. The library was a 15-minute bus ride away, and Emily's legs ached as they climbed aboard, Lily clutching her coloring book. The Harold Washington Library was a fortress of red brick and glass, its gargoyles glaring down as if judging her. Inside, it smelled of old books and coffee, a comforting hum of voices and clicking keyboards filling the air. Emily found a free computer in the corner, Lily settling beside her with crayons and a promise to be super quiet. Emily logged into Free Code Camp, her heart racing. This was it, her first hour. The tutorial started with HTML basics, guiding her to type H1 hello, world, /H1 into a text editor. She followed along, her fingers clumsy on the unfamiliar keyboard. When the screen displayed hello, world, in bold, a tiny thrill shot through her. It was small, silly even, but it felt like a victory. She moved to the next lesson, learning about paragraphs and links, losing herself in the rhythm of typing and testing. For the first time all day, the knot in her chest loosened. Then the computer froze. The screen flickered, and a pop-up warned of a system update. Emily's breath caught. "No, come on," she whispered, clicking frantically. The screen went blank, her progress gone. She glanced at the clock, 40 minutes had passed. She'd barely scratched the surface, and now this. Her hands shook as she restarted the computer, but it was sluggish, eating up precious minutes. Lily looked up, sensing her frustration. "Is it broken, Mom?" Emily forced a smile. "Just a hiccup, kiddo. Keep coloring." By the time the computer rebooted, only 10 minutes remained before the library's family section closed. Emily tried to pick up where she left off, but the tutorial wouldn't load. She slammed her fist on the desk, earning a glare from a nearby librarian. Defeat washed over her. 1 hour, and she couldn't even get that right. What was the point? She wasn't Musk, with his endless resources and genius brain. She was just Emily, a single mom with a dead laptop and a life falling apart. As she packed up, Lily slid a drawing across the table, a starry sky with two stick figures labeled Mom and Me. "For you," Lily said, her smile bright. Emily's eyes stung. She hugged Lily tight, the drawing a reminder of why she couldn't give up. "It's beautiful, sweetie," she whispered. Maybe the hour wasn't a total loss. She'd learned something, even if it was just a few lines of code. A step, however small. On the bus ride home, Lily fell asleep against Emily's shoulder, her warmth a quiet comfort. The city lights blurred past, a mix of neon and shadow. Emily's phone buzzed, another text from Jake, "I'm serious, Em. We need to talk about Lily." Her jaw clenched. She deleted it, her resolve hardening. Jake could wait. This was about her and Lily, about building a future 1 hour at a time. Back in the apartment, Emily tucked Lily into bed, kissing her forehead. She was about to close her notebook when a knock came at the door. Sarah stood in the hall, her face soft with concern. "Saw you at the library," she said. "Looked like a rough day. Need me to watch Lily tomorrow?" "I'm off." Emily hesitated, pride warring with gratitude. "That'd be amazing," she finally said. Sarah grinned. "We single moms gotta stick together, right?" Alone again, Emily opened her notebook, staring at the words she'd written. 1 hour a day. Today had been a mess. School fees, a broken computer, Jake's looming threat, but she'd done it. She'd started. The city outside hummed, alive with possibility. She didn't know if coding would save her, but for the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope. 1 hour. 1 step. She'd keep going. The Chicago wind howled outside Emily Carter's apartment, rattling the loose windowpane like a warning. It was Wednesday, 3 days into her 1 hour a day experiment, and Emily sat cross-legged on her couch, her phone propped against a cereal box, watching a FreeCode Camp video on CSS styling. The screen glowed faintly, casting shadows on the peeling wallpaper of her living room. Her notebook, now littered with scribbled tags like div and background color, lay open beside her. Each line of code felt like a small rebellion against the chaos of her life, but the chaos was fighting back hard. Lily was at school, her laughter from that morning, sparked by a silly story about a dancing star, still echoing in Emily's mind. The memory was a lifeline, but it couldn't drown out the dread pooling in her stomach. The library's computers had been down yesterday, cutting her coding hours short, and the school's payment deadline loomed like a guillotine. Then, this morning, a miracle, an email offering a freelance graphic design gig. A small business needed a logo and website mock-up, due in a week, paying $300. It wasn't much, but it could cover Lily's school fees and buy her a few weeks before the landlord's next threat. Emily had accepted immediately, ignoring the red flags, the client's vague brief, the tight deadline, the low pay for the work demanded. She paused the coding video, her eyes burning from staring at her phone's cracked screen. The freelance job needed her attention, but she was determined to stick to her 1 hour rule. Musk's words from the TED Talk replayed in her head, relentlessly. She couldn't afford to skip a day, not when she was already behind. She switched to a graphic design app on her phone, tweaking the logo sketch she'd started for the client, a sleek, minimalist design for a coffee shop called Brew Haven. The client wanted modern but cozy, whatever that meant. Emily's fingers moved quickly, adjusting fonts and colors, but her mind kept drifting to Jake's voicemail from Monday. "I'm stepping up." The words felt like a splinter under her skin, impossible to ignore. Her phone buzzed, and her heart sank. Another text from Jake, "I'm coming by tonight. We need to talk about Lily." 7 p.m. Her jaw clenched. She hadn't responded to his earlier messages, hoping he'd lose interest, but Jake was persistent when it suited him. She typed a curt reply, busy. Tomorrow. And hit send before she could overthink it. The last thing she needed was Jake waltzing back into their lives, stirring up trouble. She pictured Lily's face, her gap-toothed smile when she talked about her dad, and the ache in Emily's chest deepened. Lily deserved a father, but Jake wasn't that guy. Not yet, maybe not ever. The clock ticked closer to noon, and Emily's hour was up. She'd managed to style a basic web page in the tutorial, adding a blue header that felt like a tiny triumph. But the freelance gig loomed larger now. She spent the afternoon hunched over her phone, refining the Brew Haven logo, her neck stiffening with each passing hour. The client's feedback came at 4 p.m., a string of emails that made her blood boil, too plain. Can you add more flair? Maybe a coffee cup with steam. Also, make it pop more. No specifics, no budget for revisions, just demands. Emily gritted her teeth and reworked the design, her fingers trembling with frustration. By the time she picked up Lily from school, the logo was still not quite right, according to the client's latest email. Lily skipped beside her on the walk home, her backpack bouncing. "Mom, can we get pizza tonight?" she asked, her eyes bright with hope. Emily's stomach twisted. Pizza wasn't in the budget, not with $47 in her account and the freelance payment a week away. "Maybe this weekend, kiddo," she said, forcing a smile. "How about mac and cheese tonight?" Lily pouted but nodded, launching into a story about her science class. Emily half listened, her mind split between Lily's chatter and the growing pressure of the gig. She needed it to work, needed the money to keep Lily in school, to keep their life from unraveling. Back at the apartment, Emily cooked dinner while Lily colored at the table, humming a tune from a cartoon. The smell of melted cheese filled the air, a small comfort against the chill seeping through the walls. Emily's phone buzzed again, Jake, calling this time. She let it go to voicemail, her hands shaking as she stirred the pasta. When Lily was in bed, she played the message, bracing herself. Jake's voice was smooth, almost rehearsed. I know you're mad, but I'm serious. I've got a steady job now, a place with my girlfriend, Tara. I want to be there for Lily. Let's not make this hard." The words hit like a punch. A girlfriend? A steady job? Jake had never been steady in his life. Emily deleted the voicemail, her heart racing. He wasn't taking Lily, not without a fight. She sank onto the couch, exhaustion settling into her bones. The freelance gig, Jake, the school fees, it was too much. She opened her notebook, staring at the code notes from her hour at the library yesterday. They looked like gibberish now, a reminder of how far she was from mastering anything. Doubt crept in, whispering that Musk's rule was a pipe dream for someone like her. She wasn't a tech genius, she was a single mom drowning in bills. What was the point of 1 hour when her life was falling apart? A knock at the door startled her. It was Sarah, holding a thermos of coffee and a tired smile. "Figured you might need this," she said, stepping inside. Emily managed a weak grin, grateful for the gesture. Sarah glanced at the notebook, her eyes curious. "Still doing that coding thing?" Emily nodded, unsure how to explain the mess of her day. Sarah sat beside her, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "You're tougher than you think, Em. I see you fighting for Lily every day. Don't stop now." Emily's throat tightened. Sarah's words, simple but sincere, were a lifeline. She sipped the coffee, its warmth grounding her. "It's just hard," she admitted, her voice low. "I'm trying this 1 hour thing, but everything else keeps piling up." Sarah nodded, her eyes soft. 1 hour's a start. You're building something, even if you can't see it yet. She paused, then added, "If you need me to watch Lily tomorrow, just say the word. Get to that library." Emily hugged her, the gesture awkward but heartfelt. After Sarah left, she opened her phone and returned to the Brew Haven logo. She tweaked the design, adding a stylized coffee cup with swirling steam, pushing through the exhaustion. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. She glanced at her notebook, the words for Lily. For me. Staring back. The client might hate it, Jake might cause trouble, but she wasn't giving up. Not tonight. The city outside buzzed, the L train rumbling in the distance. Emily closed her eyes, picturing her mother's face, those tired but fierce eyes. One step. She'd keep going, 1 hour at a time, even if the cracks in her foundation were starting to show. The Chicago skyline glittered through the library's tall windows, a mosaic of steel and light that felt both inspiring and intimidating. Emily Carter sat at a corner computer, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, a free code camp tutorial on JavaScript open on the screen. It was Friday, 5 days into her 1 hour a day experiment, and she'd carved out this hour before picking up Lily from school. The library's hum, whispered conversations, the clack of keyboards, the faint rustle of pages, was a stark contrast to the chaos of her apartment, where unpaid bills and Jake's threatening texts loomed like shadows. Today, though, Emily felt a spark of something new, possibility. Her notebook lay open beside her, filled with scribbled notes on loops and functions, terms that were starting to make sense. Yesterday, she'd managed to code a simple button that changed color when clicked, a small victory, but it felt like climbing a mountain. The Brewhaven freelance gig was still a nightmare, with the client sending another round of vague feedback, more vibe, less corporate, but the $300 payment, wired this morning, had bought her a week's grace with the landlord and a pizza night for Lily. It wasn't enough, not nearly, but it was something. Enough to keep her going. Emily typed a line of code, her eyes flicking between the tutorial and the preview window. The screen displayed a basic to-do list app, her first real project. She'd gotten the idea from Lily's endless lists, chores, dreams, favorite constellations, scrawled in crayon on scraps of paper. If Emily could turn that into an app, maybe she could build something useful, something that could stand out in a portfolio. The thought made her heart race, a mix of excitement and fear. She wasn't a coder, not really, but each hour chipped away at her doubt, revealing a version of herself she barely recognized. The library clock ticked toward 3 p.m., and Emily saved her work, her fingers trembling with a quiet thrill. She'd done it, another hour, another step. She packed her notebook, picturing her mother's face, those fierce eyes that never gave up. One step, M. As she stood, her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, "Tech meetup tonight at the Beanery, 7 p.m. You should come. Bring Lily, I'll watch her." Emily hesitated. A meetup sounded like a room full of tech bros, all confidence and jargon, the kind of place where she'd feel like an imposter. But Sarah's encouragement, steady and warm, was hard to ignore. Maybe it was time to step out of her comfort zone. The Beanery, a hip coffee shop in Logan Square, was alive with chatter and the smell of roasted beans when Emily arrived, Lily in tow. The meetup was in a back room, a cozy space with exposed brick walls and string lights casting a warm glow. Lily clutched her coloring book, her eyes wide as she took in the crowd, 20-somethings in hoodies, a few older folks with laptops, all buzzing with ideas. Sarah waved from a corner, her kids already sprawled on a beanbag with crayons. "Go mingle," she said, shooing Emily toward the group. "Lily's fine with us." Emily's stomach churned as she approached the meetup organizer, a lanky guy with glasses named Mike. "Just here to listen," she said, her voice small. Mike grinned, handing her a name tag. "No pressure. Grab a coffee and jump in." She scribbled her name, her hands clammy, and found a seat near the back. The room filled with talk of APIs, startups, and disrupting the market, words that felt like a foreign language. But as the first speaker, a woman who'd built an app for local farmers, shared her story, Emily leaned forward, captivated. The woman wasn't much older than her, and her journey started with a single online course. Maybe Emily wasn't so out of place. During a break, a man approached her, his flannel shirt and easy smile disarming. "Hey, I'm Alex," he said, offering a hand. "Saw you taking notes like you're planning a heist." Emily laughed, surprised by her own ease. "Just trying to keep up." "I'm Emily, total newbie." Alex, a tech entrepreneur in his late 30s, ran a small startup focused on community apps. He asked about her work, and she hesitated before mentioning her to-do list app. "It's basic," she said, cheeks burning. "Just something I'm messing with." "Basic is where it starts," Alex said, his eyes kind. "Mind showing me?" Emily pulled out her phone, her heart pounding, and opened the app's demo on a free hosting site. It was clunky, with plain text and a single button, but Alex nodded thoughtfully. "Solid foundation. Add some user-friendly features, and you've got something." He scribbled his email on her name tag. "Send me your progress. I can give feedback if you want." Emily stared at the email, stunned. A stranger believed in her, or at least in her idea. The meetup ended, and Emily walked home with Lily, who was buzzing from too much hot chocolate. The Chicago night was crisp, the streets alive with laughter and neon signs. Lily pointed at the sky, naming constellations: Orion, Cassiopeia, her voice a bright thread in the darkness. Emily's mind raced with Alex's words. Solid foundation. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was building something, not just surviving. Back at the apartment, Emily tucked Lily into bed, her daughter's sleepy voice asking, "Did you make friends, Mom?" Emily smiled, brushing a curl from Lily's face. "Maybe, kiddo." She sat at the kitchen table, her notebook open, and spent her hour refining the app, adding a checkbox feature based on the tutorial she'd studied. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. She emailed a screenshot to Alex, her fingers trembling as she hit send. Doubt crept in. What if he thought it was amateur? What if she was wasting her time? Her phone buzzed, and she braced herself, expecting Jake. But it was Alex. "Nice work. Try adding a save function next. Let's chat at the next meetup." Emily's breath caught. It was small, but it was validation. She glanced at Lily's door, picturing her daughter's starry dreams. This was for her, for them. The city outside pulsed, its energy seeping through the walls. Emily closed her notebook, a quiet resolve settling in her chest. 1 hour, 1 step, 1 possibility at a time. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The Chicago night was sharp and restless, the wind slicing through Logan Square's streets like a warning. Emily Carter stood outside the beanery, her heart hammering as she gripped her phone, the screen displaying her to-do list app, her first real project, built over 2 weeks of stolen hours. Tonight was her third tech meetup, and Alex had convinced her to present her app in the newbie showcase. The idea terrified her, but his encouragement, "You're ready, Emily. Show them what you've got," had pushed her to say yes. Lily was with Sarah at home, safe but unaware of the stakes. Emily's 1 hour a day experiment had brought her this far, but now, standing on the edge of exposure, she felt like an imposter in a city that didn't wait for anyone. Inside, the beanery buzzed with its usual energy, coders clacking away on laptops, entrepreneurs swapping business cards, the air thick with coffee and ambition. The string lights cast a warm glow, but Emily's palms were clammy as she pinned on her name tag. Her app was still rough, with a basic interface and a few features, checkboxes, a save function, and a simple color scheme inspired by Priya's UX tips. Alex had called it promising, but promising wasn't perfect, and the thought of presenting it to a room of strangers made her stomach churn. She found Alex near the front, his flannel shirt a familiar anchor in the crowd. "Nervous?" he asked, his grin easy but not mocking. Emily nodded, her voice caught in her throat. "You'll crush it," he said, clapping her shoulder. "Just tell your story. Why you built it. Emily thought of Lily, of her crayon-scrawled lists, of her mother's voice, "Turn your pain into something beautiful." This app was for them, for single moms like her, juggling life's chaos. She took a deep breath, clutching her phone like a lifeline. The meetup kicked off with pitches from seasoned developers, their app sleek and complex, full of buzzwords like machine learning and scalability. Emily's confidence waned with each presentation, her app feeling like a child's drawing next to their polished work. When Mike, the organizer, called her name, her legs felt like lead. She walked to the front, the room's eyes boring into her. "Hi, I'm Emily," she started, her voice shaky. "I'm new to coding, but I built a to-do list app for people like me, single parents trying to stay organized." She plugged her phone into the projector, her demo loading on the screen. The app opened smoothly, showing a clean list with checkboxes. She clicked to add a task, explaining its simplicity, her voice gaining strength. Then, disaster. She tapped the save button, and the app froze. The screen flickered, then crashed, a blank white error message staring back at her. The room went silent, a few awkward coughs breaking the tension. Emily's face burned. She tapped frantically, muttering, "Just a sec," but the app wouldn't reload. Her mind raced, had she forgotten a line of code? Missed a bug? The silence stretched, unbearable. Mike stepped in, his tone kind but firm. "Tech glitches happen. Thanks, Emily." She mumbled an apology and fled to her seat, her cheeks flaming. Alex leaned over, whispering, "It's okay. Happens to everyone." But it didn't feel okay. It felt like proof she didn't belong here, that her 1-hour-a-day dream was a joke. The rest of the meetup blurred past, her humiliation a weight she couldn't shake. She left early, the Chicago night swallowing her as she walked home, the city's pulse mocking her failure. Back at the apartment, Sarah was on the couch, Lily asleep in her room. "How'd it go?" Sarah asked, her eyes searching. Emily forced a smile, her voice tight. "Fine. Just tired." Sarah didn't push, but her hug lingered, a silent understanding. Alone, Emily sank onto the couch, her phone still open to the crashed app. She wanted to throw it across the room, to give up on this coding nonsense. What was the point? She wasn't a developer, she was a struggling mom with a dead-end freelance gig and a landlord breathing down her neck. Her phone buzzed, and her stomach dropped. "Jake." His text was blunt, "Filed for partial custody today. My lawyer will call you." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Custody. Jake, who hadn't seen Lily in months, who'd left them with nothing but excuses, thought he could take her daughter. Emily's hands shook as she dialed his number, rage overtaking her. He picked up on the third ring, his voice smug. It's time. Tara and I can give Lily a stable home. You're struggling, and the court will see that." "Stable?" Emily snapped, her voice low to avoid waking Lily. "You left us, Jake. You don't get to swoop in now." He sighed, like she was the unreasonable one. "I've changed, Em. I've got a job, a place. Think about Lily." She hung up, her heart pounding. Think about Lily. That's all she ever did. Every late night, every rejected freelance pitch, every hour spent learning code, it was all for Lily. And now Jake was threatening to take her away, using Emily's financial struggles as ammunition. She paced the apartment, the city's hum seeping through the walls. The Brewhaven freelance gig was done, the $300 spent on rent and school fees, but new bills were piling up. The school had given her a month to settle the rest, but Jake's custody threat changed everything. If he took this to court, she'd need a lawyer, money she didn't have. She sank onto the couch, her notebook staring back at her. 1 hour a day. For Lily. For me. Tonight, it felt like a lie. 1 hour couldn't fix a crashed app or a custody battle. A memory surfaced, unbidden, her mother, Diane, in their Indiana kitchen, her hands dusted with flour as she kneaded dough. Emily was 16, crying over a boy who ditched her for someone cooler. Diane had hugged her, her voice steady. "You don't need them to see your worth, Em. You fight for what matters." Lily mattered. This app, this dream of a better life, mattered. Emily wiped her eyes, her resolve hardening. The app crash was a setback, not the end. Jake's threat was a fight, not a defeat. She opened her phone, ignoring the sting of the meetup disaster, and spent her hour reviewing the code. Line by line, she searched for the bug, her eyes burning with exhaustion. The city outside was relentless, its lights flickering like stars Lily loved. Emily thought of her daughter's drawings, those crayon skies, and her mother's words, "Keep moving forward." She wouldn't let Jake or a failed demo stop her. Not tonight, not ever. The Chicago night pressed against Emily Carter's apartment window, the city's pulse a faint hum beneath the creak of her radiator. It was past midnight, and the kitchen table was a battlefield of empty coffee mugs, crumpled post-its, and her open notebook, its pages dense with code snippets and sketches. Lily was asleep, her soft snores drifting from the next room, a reminder of why Emily was still awake, fighting through exhaustion. The app demo crash at the tech meetup 2 days ago still stung, a public humiliation that had left her questioning her 1 hour a day experiment. Worse, Jake's custody filing loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to tear her world apart. But tonight, Emily felt a spark of defiance, fueled by a single word she'd read in an article about Elon Musk: pivot. Musk had pivoted, SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, all born from setbacks turned into opportunities. If he could rebuild after failure, so could she. The to-do list app, her first attempt at coding, was a mess, its crash at the binary proof she'd aimed too small. But the idea behind it, helping people manage chaos, still burned in her. She thought of her own life, the endless juggling of bills, school fees, and Lily's needs. What if her app wasn't just a generic to-do list but something specific, something for single parents like her? A tool to track budgets, schedules, even dreams, all in one place. The thought lit a fire in her chest, a mix of fear and excitement. Emily opened her phone, the cracked screen glowing as she pulled up her app's code. She'd spent her hour yesterday debugging the crash, a missing semicolon, of all things, and it ran smoothly now, but it wasn't enough. She needed to rethink the app's purpose, make it personal. She jotted notes in her notebook: budget tracker, kid-friendly reminders, goal planner. Her mind flashed to Lily's crayon lists, pinned to the fridge, and her mother's voice in their Indiana kitchen: "Turn your pain into purpose, Em." This app could be her purpose, a way to help others like her, to prove she was more than her failures. Her phone buzzed, and her stomach clenched. Jake again, probably. But it was an email from Alex: "Heard about the demo. Don't sweat it. Crashes are part of the game. Got ideas for your app? Let's talk." Emily's throat tightened. Alex's support, steady and unjudgmental, was something she wasn't used to. She typed a quick reply, her fingers trembling, thinking about pivoting to a single-parent app. "Coffee tomorrow?" She hit send, her heart racing. Trusting Alex felt risky, like handing a piece of herself to someone who might let her down, like Jake had. But she couldn't do this alone. The next morning, Chicago woke under a rare clear sky, the sun glinting off Lake Michigan as Emily and Lily boarded a bus to the beanery. Sarah had offered to watch Lily, but Emily wanted her daughter close, especially with Jake's custody threat hanging over them. Lily clutched her coloring book, chattering about a school project on planets. "Mars is red, Mom, like your hair," she said, giggling. Emily laughed, the sound easing the knot in her chest. Lily's joy was her anchor, a reminder of what she was fighting for. At the beanery, Alex was waiting at a corner table, his laptop open and a coffee in hand. "You look like you didn't sleep," he said, his grin teasing but kind. Emily shrugged, setting Lily up with crayons at a nearby table. Sleep's overrated. She explained her pivot idea, a single-parent app with budgeting tools, reminders for school events, and a section for personal goals. Alex nodded, his eyes lighting up. That's a niche with heart. Single parents are underserved in tech. You could test it with local groups, get real feedback. He pulled up a site on his laptop, showing her how to create a simple user survey. Start small, he said. Ask what single parents need most. Build from there. Emily scribbled notes, her mind racing. The idea felt bigger now, realer, but also daunting. Her coding skills were basic, her time stretched thin. Could she really pull this off? Alex seemed to sense her doubt. You're not alone in this, he said. I've got a small team, designers, testers. We can help, if you're up for it. Emily hesitated, her instinct to stay independent warring with the need for support. She thought of her mother, Diane, saying, find your people. Maybe Alex was one of them. Back at the apartment, Emily spent her hour researching budgeting tools, her phone screen filled with articles on financial apps. Lily was sprawled on the couch, coloring a picture of Mars, her tongue poking out in concentration. Emily's heart swelled, but Jake's text from yesterday, my lawyer will call you, gnawed at her. She couldn't afford a lawyer, not with her bank account hovering near zero. The Brewhaven gig was done, but no new freelance work had come through, and the school's payment deadline was 2 weeks away. Time was her enemy, pressing in from all sides. Sarah knocked on the door, her face bright despite the late hour. Heard you're cooking up something big, she said, holding a plate of cookies. Emily smiled, grateful for the distraction. Trying to. It's an app for single parents, like us. Sarah's eyes widened. That's genius, Em. You gotta let me test it. She offered to watch Lily tomorrow, giving Emily an extra hour at the library. You're doing this for her, right? Sarah said, nodding toward Lily's room. You're stronger than you know. Alone again, Emily opened her notebook, sketching a wireframe for the app's budget tracker. The city outside thrummed, its lights flickering like the stars Lily loved. She thought of her mother, teaching her to knead dough in their Indiana kitchen, her hands steady despite their struggles. Pain's a teacher, Em. Use it. This app was her way of using it, turning her chaos into something meaningful. She worked past her hour, coding a basic budget form, her eyes burning but her resolve unbroken. Her phone buzzed, Alex again, surveys up. Shared it with a single-parent group. Expect feedback soon. Emily's chest tightened with a mix of hope and fear. This was real now, bigger than her. She glanced at Lily's latest drawing on the fridge, a red planet with 2 stick figures, labeled Mom and Me. For them, she'd keep going, no matter how hard the road. The Chicago night stretched on, relentless but alive, and Emily felt a spark of its energy in her veins. 1 hour, 1 pivot, 1 chance to rise. The Chicago courthouse loomed like a fortress of gray stone, its columns casting long shadows across the steps as Emily Carter climbed them, her heart pounding like a drum. The morning was chilly, the May air sharp with the promise of rain, and the city's pulse, horns, footsteps, distant sirens, felt like it was mocking her. Today was the custody hearing for Lily, a battle Emily hadn't seen coming until Jake's lawyer called last week. Her 1 hour a day experiment, now in its 3rd week, had given her a spark of hope with her single-parent app, but that spark felt dim against the threat of losing her daughter. Her notebook, tucked in her bag, held new wireframes for the app alongside scribbled legal terms, privacy, burden of proof, learned during late-night hours at the library. She was fighting on 2 fronts, and both felt like they could break her. Inside, the courthouse smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, its halls echoing with clipped voices and the shuffle of papers. Emily adjusted her thrift store blazer, the sleeves slightly too long, and smoothed her hair, trying to look like someone who had her life together. Lily was with Sarah, who'd taken the day off to watch her, a kindness Emily could never repay. The thought of Lily's gap-toothed smile, her crayon drawings of stars and planets, steadied Emily's nerves. She couldn't lose her. Not to Jake, who'd abandoned them for years, only to reappear with a lawyer and a girlfriend named Tara, claiming he was stable now. The courtroom was smaller than she'd imagined, its pews half empty, the judge consumptioners. Emily sat in the back, her hands clammy as she waited for the judge. Jake was across the room, his dark hair slicked back, wearing a cheap suit that didn't quite fit. Tara sat beside him, her blonde hair pulled tight, her eyes avoiding Emily's. Jake's lawyer, a wiry man with a sharp gaze, whispered to him, and Emily's stomach twisted. She was representing herself, pro se, the library books called it, because a lawyer was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her 1-hour sessions this week had been split between coding her app and studying family law, her eyes burning from sleepless nights. She felt unprepared, exposed, but Lily's future was on the line. The judge, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, called the case. Emily's heart raced as Jake's lawyer stood, his voice smooth and confident. My client, Jacob Reed, seeks joint custody of his daughter, Lily Carter. Mr. Reed has secured stable employment and a suitable home with his partner, Ms. Tara Wells. Ms. Carter, however, is financially unstable, facing eviction and unable to pay school fees. We believe Mr. Reed can provide a more consistent environment for the child. Emily's face burned, the words cutting deeper than she'd expected. She stood, her voice shaky but clear. Your Honor, I've raised Lily alone since she was born. Jake, Mr. Reed, hasn't been involved. He's never paid child support, never shown up for her. I'm working hard, building a future for us. I'm learning to code, creating an app to help single parents like me. I'm not perfect, but Lily is my world. Her voice cracked, and she gripped the table, fighting tears. The judge's expression was unreadable, but she nodded for Emily to continue. She'd spent her daily hour yesterday practicing her statement, memorizing facts, Jake's absence, her freelance work, her app's progress. I've paid the school fees up to date, she said, her voice steadier. I'm stable enough to provide for her, and I love her more than anything. The judge asked for proof of income, and Emily handed over bank statements and the Brew Haven payment receipt, her hands trembling. Jake's lawyer countered, pointing out her overdue bills and lack of steady employment. Ms. Carter's intentions are admirable, but intentions don't pay rent, he said, his tone smug. The hearing dragged on, each question a knife to Emily's confidence. The judge asked Jake why he was seeking custody now. He stood, his voice smooth but hollow. I've made mistakes, Your Honor, but I've got a good job now, a home. Tara and I want to give Lily a better life. Emily's blood boiled. A better life? Where was he when Lily cried herself to sleep as a baby, when Emily worked double shifts to afford formula? She bit her tongue, knowing an outburst would hurt her case. After an hour, the judge called a recess, promising a decision by afternoon. Emily stumbled to the hallway, her legs weak. Alex was waiting outside, his flannel shirt and kind eyes a lifeline. He'd insisted on coming, despite her protests. You did great, he said, handing her a coffee. You told your truth. Emily shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. It's not enough. They see me as a failure. Alex's jaw tightened. You're not a failure. You're building something real. Show them the app, it's proof you're moving forward. Emily hesitated, then pulled out her phone, showing Alex the latest version of her single-parent app. She'd added a budget tracker and a calendar for school events, using feedback from Alex's survey. It's rough, she said, but it's mine. Alex grinned. It's more than rough. It's got potential. Tell the judge about it. It shows you're planning for Lily's future. His belief in her was a spark, reigniting her resolve. Back in the courtroom, Emily took his advice, describing her app and her coding journey, her voice stronger now. I'm learning every day, Your Honor, 1 hour at a time, to build a better life for Lily. I'm not giving up. The judge nodded, her face still unreadable, and dismissed them to deliberate. Emily left the courthouse with Alex, the Chicago wind biting her skin. The city stretched out before her, its skyscrapers gleaming under a cloudy sky, a reminder of how small she felt but also how far she'd come. At home, Sarah greeted her with a hug, Lily coloring in the background. You're a fighter, Em, Sarah said, her voice fierce. Emily nodded, her eyes on Lily, who waved a drawing of a rocket ship. She spent her hour that night coding, fixing a bug in the budget tracker, her fingers steady despite the uncertainty. The city hummed outside, its rhythm a challenge and a promise. Whatever the judge decided, Emily wouldn't stop. For Lily, for her mother's memory, for herself, she'd keep fighting, 1 hour at a time. The Chicago evening buzzed with possibility, the skyline a jagged silhouette against a fiery sunset. Emily Carter stood outside a converted warehouse in the West Loop, its brick facade glowing under neon signs advertising the city's monthly tech pitch night. Her heart raced, a mix of nerves and adrenaline, as she clutched her phone, the screen displaying her single-parent app, now named ParentPulse, polished over 3 weeks of relentless, 1 hour a day, sessions. Tonight was her chance to pitch it to a room of local investors and tech enthusiasts, a shot at a $5,000 grant to fund further development. Lily was with Sarah, safe but on Emily's mind, especially after yesterday's custody hearing, where the judge's decision still hung in limbo. This pitch wasn't just for her, it was for Lily, for their future. The warehouse interior was a hive of energy, exposed beams, string lights, and a crowd of coders, entrepreneurs, and investors mingling over craft beer and charcuterie. The air smelled of cedar and ambition, a far cry from Emily's cramped apartment, where unpaid bills and Jake's custody threat loomed. Alex had prepped her for this moment, meeting her daily at the beanery to refine her pitch. Tell your story, he'd said, his eyes steady. Show them why this matters. Emily's app now had a budget tracker, a school calendar, and a goal-setting feature, all tailored for single parents. User feedback from Alex's survey had shaped it, making it feel like a real solution, not just a dream. Emily adjusted her thrift store blazer, its sleeves still slightly too long, and pinned on her name tag. Her hands trembled as she reviewed her pitch notes, scribbled in her notebook alongside code snippets and UX sketches. The app wasn't perfect, its design was still basic, and she'd wrestled with bugs all week, but it worked, and it was hers. She thought of her mother, Diane, in their Indiana kitchen, her hands guiding Emily's over a sketchpad. Turn your pain into purpose, Em, she'd said, her voice rough but warm. This app was Emily's purpose, a way to help others like her, to prove she could provide for Lily. Alex found her near the stage, his flannel shirt a familiar anchor. Ready to shine? He asked, his grin easing her nerves. Emily managed a nod, her throat tight. What if I bomb again, she whispered, the memory of her crashed demo at the beanery still raw. Alex's expression softened. You won't. You've got this. Just be you. His belief in her was a lifeline, but doubt lingered. Jake's lawyer had painted her as unstable in court, and the judge's pending decision felt like a sword over her head. She couldn't afford to fail, not tonight, not ever. The pitch event began, and Emily watched from the sidelines as others presented, sleek apps for fitness, finance, even pet care. Each pitch was polished, confident, making her feel like an outsider. When her name was called, her legs felt like jelly, but she walked to the stage, the spotlight hot on her face. The crowd's eyes locked onto her, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. She took a deep breath, picturing Lily's starry drawings, and began. I'm Emily Carter, a single mom, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. I built ParentPulse because I know what it's like to juggle bills, school schedules, and dreams on your own. This app helps single parents stay organized, save money, and keep their goals alive. She plugged her phone into the projector, her demo loading smoothly. The budget tracker displayed, clean and functional, followed by the calendar and goal planner. She walked through a sample use case, a mom tracking daycare costs and setting a savings goal. Her voice growing stronger with each slide. The crowd nodded, a few jotting notes, and Emily's heart soared. No crashes, no glitches. Just her story, her app, her truth. The Q&A was tougher. An investor asked about scalability, a term Emily had only vaguely grasped. She stumbled, admitting her coding was self-taught, but pivoted to her user feedback, emphasizing real-world impact. Another asked about monetization, and she fumbled again, mentioning ads or subscriptions as possibilities. But Alex's advice echoed, "Be you. This app is for people like me," she said, her voice raw. "It's not about profit yet, it's about making life easier for parents who feel alone." The room went quiet, then erupted in applause. Emily's cheeks burned, a mix of relief and disbelief. After the pitches, the organizers announced the grant winners. Emily stood with Alex, her hands clasped tight, barely breathing. When they called her name, ParentPulse, Emily Carter, $5,000, the room spun. She'd done it. Not first place, but a grant, a real step forward. Alex hugged her, his laugh loud and genuine. "Told you," he said. The crowd swarmed, offering congratulations and business cards, and Emily felt like she was floating. For the first time, she saw a path, not just survival, but success. On the bus ride home, Chicago's lights blurred past, a kaleidoscope of hope. Lily's school project, a model of Mars, sat in her bag, a reminder of the balance she was struggling to maintain. The grant would help, maybe enough for a lawyer, to fight Jake, but it wasn't a cure-all. Her app needed work, and time was still her enemy. At home, Sarah greeted her with a squeal, Lily waking up to join the celebration. "You won, Mom?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. Emily knelt, hugging her tight. "Kinda, kiddo. We're getting there." That night, Emily spent her hour coding, adding a notification feature to ParentPulse based on user feedback. The city's hum seeped through her window, its energy syncing with hers. She thought of Diane, teaching her to draw under Indiana's starry skies, her voice a steady guide, purpose, M. That's what keeps you going. This app, this grant, was her purpose taking shape. Jake's custody threat still loomed, but tonight, Emily felt unstoppable. 1 hour, one breakthrough, one step closer to the life she and Lily deserved. The Chicago courthouse stood like a monolith under a slate-gray sky, its stone facade cold and unyielding as Emily Carter climbed the steps, her breath catching in the chilly May air. The city's pulse, honking cabs, the distant rumble of the L train, felt distant, drowned out by the thud of her heart. Today was the final custody hearing for Lily, the moment that would decide if Jake, her ex, could take her daughter away. Emily's 1 hour a day experiment had carried her through 3 weeks of coding her single-parent app, ParentPulse, and last night's $5,000 grant win at the tech pitch event had been a lifeline. But none of that mattered if she lost Lily. Her notebook, tucked in her bag, held legal notes alongside app wireframes, a testament to her divided battles. She gripped the strap, picturing Lily's starry drawings, and steeled herself for the fight ahead. Inside, the courthouse smelled of wax and worry, its marble floors echoing with hurried footsteps. Emily adjusted her thrift store blazer, its sleeves still too long, and smoothed her hair, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Sarah had taken Lily to school, promising a movie night to keep her spirits up. Alex was here, too, waiting in the hall, his presence a quiet anchor. He'd insisted on coming again, his flannel shirt and steady gaze a reminder that she wasn't alone. "You've got this," he'd said outside, his voice firm. "You're fighting for Lily. That's enough." Emily clung to his words, but Jake's custody filing, backed by his lawyer and his new girlfriend, Tara, felt like an avalanche she couldn't outrun. The courtroom was stark, its wooden pews worn and creaking, the air heavy with tension. Emily sat in the front, her hands clasped tight, as Jake and Tara took their seats across the aisle. Jake's suit was crisp today, his dark hair slicked back, but his eyes avoided hers. Tara, blonde and poised, whispered to him, her hand possessive on his arm. Emily's stomach churned. She was representing herself, pro se, her 1-hour sessions this week spent studying custody laws and practicing her arguments. The $5,000 grant could help with a lawyer later, but today, it was just her, armed with her love for Lily and a folder of bank statements and app screenshots. The judge, a stern woman with silver-streaked hair, called the session to order. Emily's heart pounded as Jake's lawyer stood, his voice smooth and cutting. Your Honor, Mr. Reed is prepared to offer a stable home for Lily Carter, with a 2-bedroom apartment and steady income from his job as a music instructor. Ms. Carter, while well-intentioned, faces financial instability, with overdue bills and no consistent employment. Joint custody ensures Lily's best interests. Emily's face burned, the words slicing through her. She stood, her legs trembling but her voice steady. Your Honor, I've raised Lily alone for 8 years. Mr. Reed has been absent, no visits, no support. I'm building a future for us, learning to code, creating an app for single parents. I won a grant last night to fund it, proof I'm moving forward. Lily needs me, and I'm here for her, always. She handed over her grant confirmation and app screenshots, her hands shaking but her gaze firm. The judge nodded, her expression neutral, and turned to Jake. Mr. Reed, explain your renewed interest in custody, the judge said, her tone sharp. Jake stood, his voice less confident than his lawyer's. I've made mistakes, Your Honor, but I'm settled now. Tara and I want to give Lily a good life, with a real family. The word family hit Emily like a slap. She thought of Lily's drawings, just Mom and me, no Jake. She bit her lip, fighting the urge to shout. The judge called Tara to speak, and Emily braced herself. Tara's voice was polished, almost rehearsed. I love kids, Your Honor. I've been pushing Jake to step up, to be a father. We're ready to take Lily on weekends, give her stability. Emily's blood boiled. Pushing Jake. This wasn't about Lily, it was about Tara's idea of a perfect family, with Emily's daughter as a prop. The judge's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift. Ms. Wells, is this custody request primarily your initiative? She asked. Tara faltered, her poise cracking. I just want what's best for Lily, she stammered. Jake shifted, his face reddening. The judge pressed, her voice like steel. Mr. Reed, clarify your intentions. Is this your commitment or Ms. Wells? Jake's silence was deafening, his eyes darting to Tara. It's both of us, he mumbled, but the lie hung heavy in the air. Emily's heart raced, a mix of hope and fury. The truth was out, Jake's bid wasn't about love for Lily. It was Tara's project, a way to play house. The judge deliberated briefly, then delivered her ruling. Ms. Carter retains full custody. Mr. Reed may request supervised visitation, contingent on consistent involvement and child support payments. Emily's knees buckled, relief flooding her. She'd won, for now. But as Jake slunk out, Tara's arm around him, Emily felt a pang of sorrow. Lily missed her father, even if he didn't deserve her. The victory was hollow, tinged with the ache of what could have been. Outside, Alex hugged her, his grin wide. You did it, Emily. She nodded, tears spilling over. I kept her, she whispered, but the weight of Lily's longing for Jake lingered. Back at the apartment, Sarah and Lily greeted her with cheers, Lily waving a drawing of a rocket ship. You're my hero, Mom, she said, her hug fierce. Emily held her tight, her heart full but heavy. That night, Emily spent her hour coding, adding a journal feature to Parent Pulse for parents to log their dreams. The city's lights flickered outside, a reminder of Chicago's relentless hope. She thought of her mother, Diane, teaching her to draw under Indiana's stars, saying, "Love's worth fighting for, M." She'd fought for Lily, but the ache of Jake's absence, for her daughter's sake, stayed with her. 1 hour, one truth, one step closer to healing. The Chicago morning sparkled with rare clarity, the sun glinting off Lake Michigan and casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalks of Logan Square. Emily Carter stood in her apartment, the air smelling faintly of coffee and Lily's strawberry shampoo, as she taped a new drawing to the fridge, a vibrant sketch of a rocket ship soaring through a starry sky, labeled "Mom and Me." The custody hearing victory 3 days ago had lifted a weight from her shoulders, but the ache of Lily's longing for her father, Jake, lingered like a bruise. Emily's 1 hour a day experiment, now in its 4th week, had carried her through with Parent Pulse, her single-parent app, which had won a $5,000 grant at the Tech Pitch event. Today, it was launching publicly, a milestone that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The apartment was a mess of moving boxes, a sign of the new chapter ahead. The grant money had paid off Lily's school fees and secured a deposit for a better apartment. A modest one-bedroom in a safer part of the neighborhood, with a real lease and no threatening landlord texts. Emily's phone buzzed with a notification from Alex, "Local news wants to interview you about Parent Pulse. 2 p.m. at the Beanery. You're a star." Her stomach fluttered, a mix of pride and nerves. The app wasn't perfect, its budget tracker and journal features were still clunky, but user feedback from single-parent groups had been glowing, calling it a lifeline. Emily was starting to believe it could be more than a dream. She spent her morning hour coding, tweaking the app's notification system to alert users about upcoming bills. Her notebook, now a thick archive of wireframes, code snippets, and legal notes from the custody battle, lay open beside her. The city's hum seeped through the window, the clatter of the L train, the chatter of neighbors, its rhythm syncing with her own. Lily bounded into the kitchen, her curls bouncing, and plopped onto a chair with her coloring book. "Mom, are we famous yet?" she asked, her gap-toothed grin infectious. Emily laughed, ruffling her hair. "Not quite, kiddo, but we're getting there." The memory of the courtroom flashed through her mind, Jake's defeated slump, Tara's tight-lipped exit, the judge's ruling granting Emily full custody. It was a triumph, but it came with a cost. Lily had asked about her dad last night, her voice small, "Does he not want me?" Emily had held her close, promising, "He's just figuring things out, sweetie. You've got me, always." The words felt inadequate, but they were all she had. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on Lily's chatter about her school's science fair, where her Mars model had won 2nd place. At the Beanery, the coffee shop buzzed with its usual energy, hipsters typing furiously, the scent of roasted beans mingling with the hum of conversation. Alex greeted Emily with a hug, his flannel shirt a familiar comfort. "Ready for your close-up?" he teased, nodding toward a reporter from a local news blog, Chicago Pulse, setting up a camera. Emily adjusted her sweater, her nerves jangling. "What if I mess this up?" she whispered. Alex's eyes softened. "You won't. You're telling your story, not theirs." The interview was surreal, the reporter, a young woman named Mia, asking about Parent Pulse's origin. Emily spoke from the heart, her voice steady. "I built this for single parents like me, trying to juggle everything, bills, kids, dreams. It's not just an app, it's a way to feel less alone." She talked about her coding journey, her 1 hour a day rule inspired by Elon Musk, and the grant win. Mia's eyes lit up, scribbling notes. "This is inspiring," she said. "Readers will love it." The article, posted that evening, called Emily Chicago's single mom coder to watch, and by nightfall, Parent Pulse had 100 new downloads. Back home, Emily and Lily celebrated with pizza, real pizza, not the frozen kind, Lily giggling as cheese dripped onto her chin. Sarah joined them, her kids in tow, turning the apartment into a chaotic, joyful mess. "You're a rock star, Em," Sarah said, raising a slice in a mock toast. Emily smiled, but doubt crept in. The grant was a start, but downloads didn't pay bills, and Jake's visitation rights, though supervised, meant he'd be back in their lives. Could she keep this up, balancing motherhood, coding, and the fear of failing again? That night, Emily spent her hour mentoring, not coding. She joined a single-parent group online, inspired by her app's feedback, and answered questions about budgeting and goal setting. It felt good, like giving back the hope others had given her. She and Lily worked on an art project afterward, painting a canvas with stars and a rocket ship, their laughter filling the apartment. The city outside glowed, its neon lights a reminder of Chicago's relentless spirit. Emily thought of her mother, Diane, in their Indiana kitchen, teaching her to paint through tough times. "Love's what keeps you going, Em," she'd said, her hands steady on the brush. Emily was rebuilding, not just for herself but for Lily, for the parents downloading her app, for the woman she was becoming. The fear of failure lingered, but it was quieter now, drowned out by the hum of possibility. 1 hour, one rebuild, one step closer to a life she could be proud of. The Chicago morning bloomed with a rare softness, the sun filtering through the leaves of Logan Square's tree-lined streets, casting dappled light on the sidewalk. Emily Carter stood in the living room of her new apartment, a modest one-bedroom with fresh paint and a window that didn't rattle in the wind. It was a far cry from the cramped, leaky place she and Lily had called home just a week ago. The $5,000 grant from the tech pitch event, combined with a new freelance UI/UX design contract, had made this move possible, a tangible step toward stability. Her single-parent app, ParentPulse, was gaining traction, with over 500 downloads since the Chicago Pulse article called her the single mom coder to watch. But as Emily unpacked a box of Lily's drawings, the weight of her new normal felt both exhilarating and unsteady, like walking a tightrope. Lily bounded into the room, her curls bouncing, a cereal bowl in hand. "Mom, this place is huge," she said, her gap-toothed grin lighting up the space. The apartment wasn't huge, not by Chicago standards, but it had a real kitchen, a bathroom with no mold, and a corner for Lily's art supplies. Emily laughed, ruffling her daughter's hair. "Big enough for us, kiddo." She taped a rocket ship drawing to the fridge, its bright colors a reminder of the life she was building. The custody battle was behind them, with Jake granted supervised visitation but no real presence yet. Lily hadn't asked about him since the hearing, but Emily knew the ache was there, buried under her daughter's starry optimism. Emily's phone buzzed with a notification from Alex, downloads hit 600. "You're killing it. Meeting with a dev team tomorrow?" Her heart skipped. Alex's startup had offered to collaborate on ParentPulse, providing free coding support to polish its features. The app now had a budget tracker, a school calendar, and a journal for personal goals, but users were clamoring for more. A community forum, push notifications for savings milestones. Emily was learning fast, her 1 hour a day rule evolving from coding tutorials to personal growth. Today's hour would be spent journaling, a new habit she'd picked up to process the whirlwind of the past month. She sat at the kitchen table, a new one without wobbles, and opened her notebook. Its pages, once a chaotic mix of code and legal notes, now held reflections on resilience and dreams. She wrote, "Grateful for Lily, for this place, for a chance to breathe. Scared I'll mess it up." Success felt fragile, like a soap bubble that could pop with one wrong move. The freelance contract, designing interfaces for a local startup, paid well but demanded long hours. Balancing it with ParentPulse and Lily's needs was a juggling act, and Emily feared dropping a ball. Jake's visitation loomed, too, his first supervised session was next week, and she worried how it would affect Lily. The city outside hummed, its rhythm softer in this quieter corner of Logan Square. The L train's clatter was distant, replaced by the chirp of sparrows and the laughter of kids on bikes. Emily glanced at Lily, sprawled on the floor with her coloring book, sketching a planet with rings. "Is that Saturn?" Emily asked, leaning over. Lily nodded, her tongue poking out in concentration. "It's got 1 billion rings, Mom. Like your app, it holds everything together." Emily's throat tightened. Lily's faith in her was a gift, one she was determined to earn. That afternoon, Emily took Lily to a nearby park, a green oasis amid Chicago's concrete. Lily ran to the swings, her laughter mingling with the breeze, while Emily sat on a bench, her phone open to ParentPulse analytics. The app's growth was steady, with users praising its simplicity. A single mom from Pilsen had emailed, saying it helped her save for her son's school supplies. The words warmed Emily, but doubt crept in. What if the app stalled? What if the freelance job dried up? She thought of her mother, Diane, in their Indiana kitchen, saying, "Fear's just noise, Em. Keep going." Journaling was helping her quiet that noise, giving her space to dream beyond survival. Back home, Sarah stopped by, her arms full of grocery bags. "Housewarming gift," she said, grinning as she unpacked bread, cheese, and a bottle of cheap wine. "You're fancy now, Em." Emily laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in weeks. They cooked dinner together, Lily and Sarah's kids turning the kitchen into a chaotic art studio, paint smearing on the counter. Over wine, Sarah asked about ParentPulse. "You're helping people, Em. That's huge." Emily nodded, her eyes on Lily's latest drawing, a starry sky with 2 stick figures. "I just want to keep it going," she said, her voice soft. For her. That night, Emily's hour was spent meditating, a new practice she'd found through an online course. She sat cross-legged on the floor, the city's lights flickering outside, and focused on her breath, letting the fear of failure fade. The apartment was quiet, Lily asleep, the new walls holding them like a promise. Emily thought of Diane, teaching her to paint under Indiana's stars, her voice steady, "You're enough, Em. Always." This new normal, stability, purpose, hope, was hers to shape. She wasn't there yet, but she was closer, 1 hour at a time. The Chicago skyline shimmered under a late May sun, its glass towers reflecting a city that never stopped dreaming. Emily Carter stood backstage at the Chicago Tech Summit, a sprawling conference center in the Loop buzzing with thousands of developers, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Her palms were sweaty, her thrift store blazer swapped for a crisp navy dress Sarah had insisted she borrow. Her single-parent app, ParentPulse, had exploded to 2,000 downloads in the 2 weeks since the Chicago Pulse article, and its success had landed her a speaking slot today, a 15-minute talk on bootstrapping your dream. Her 1-hour-a-day experiment, now a month strong, had transformed her life, but standing here, with Lily at home and the weight of 1,000 eyes waiting, Emily felt the familiar tug of doubt. Could she really inspire others when she was still figuring it out herself? The conference hall was a sea of energy. Laptops glowing, voices overlapping in a hum of ideas, the air thick with coffee and anticipation. Banners touted AI, blockchain, and the future of tech, terms Emily was starting to grasp thanks to her daily hours of learning. Her notebook, tucked in her bag, was a testament to her journey, code snippets, journal entries, and sketches of ParentPulse's new community forum, launched last week to connect single parents. The app was changing lives, emails poured in from users, one from a dad in Englewood who'd saved for his daughter's dance lessons using the budget tracker. Yet Emily's success felt like a tightrope, with the fear of falling never far away. Alex met her backstage, his flannel shirt swapped for a rare button-down, his grin steady as ever. "Nervous?" he asked, handing her a water bottle. Emily nodded, her throat tight. "What if I freeze up there?" Alex's eyes softened. "You won't. You're not just selling an app, you're telling your story. That's what they'll remember." His startup had been instrumental, providing free coding support to polish ParentPulse, and yesterday, he proposed a formal partnership. His team would scale the app, with Emily retaining creative control. The offer was tempting, resources, stability, but it meant sharing her dream, a risk that stirred memories of Jake's broken promises. Lily's face flashed in her mind, her gap-toothed smile from this morning as she waved Emily off with a new drawing, a starry sky with a rocket labeled Mom's app. Sarah was watching her, turning their new apartment into a science fair prep zone for Lily's latest project. Emily's heart swelled, but Jake's supervised visitation tomorrow loomed, a reminder of unresolved tensions. She pushed it aside, focusing on the stage. Her mother, Diane, had taught her to face fear head-on, saying in their Indiana kitchen, "You don't need permission to shine, Em." Today, she'd shine for Lily, for herself, for every parent her app had touched. The MC called her name, and Emily stepped into the spotlight, the crowd a blur of faces. Her voice trembled at first, but she found her rhythm, telling her story, a single mom, fired, broke, inspired by Elon Musk's 1-hour rule to learn coding. "I built ParentPulse for parents like me," she said, her voice clear. "It's not just an app. It's a lifeline, helping us manage budgets, schedules, and dreams." She showed a demo, the budget tracker and community forum drawing murmurs of approval. "1 hour a day changed my life," she finished. "It can change yours, too." The applause was thunderous, and Emily's cheeks burned with pride and disbelief. She'd done it, not just survived, but inspired. Afterward, attendees swarmed her, asking about ParentPulse and her journey. A single mom from Hyde Park hugged her, tears in her eyes. "Your app helped me save for my son's birthday," she said. Emily's throat tightened, the ripple effect of her work sinking in. Alex found her later, his grin wide. "You killed it. Ready to talk partnership?" Emily hesitated, her instinct to stay independent clashing with the need for growth. "I want to," she said, "but I need to keep control. This app's my heart." Alex nodded, unfazed. "We'll make it work. Your vision, our support." Back home, the new apartment glowed with warmth, Lily's laughter filling the space as she showed Sarah her science fair model, a papier-mâché Jupiter. "Mom, you're famous." Lily squealed, hugging her. Emily laughed, pulling her close. Over dinner, Sarah raised a glass of juice in a mock toast. "To Ripples," she said, her eyes shining. Emily smiled, but the partnership decision weighed on her. Trusting Alex felt like stepping off a cliff, but Diane's voice echoed, "Find your people, Em." Maybe Alex was one of them. That night, Emily's hour was spent journaling, reflecting on the conference and the partnership. The city's lights flickered outside, Chicago's restless spirit mirroring her own. She wrote, "Scared to share my dream, but it's bigger than me now. For Lily, for others, I'll try." The apartment was quiet, Lily asleep, the new walls a promise of stability. Emily thought of her mother, painting under Indiana's stars, saying, "Love makes you brave, Em." She was braver now, shaped by 1 hour, 1 ripple, 1 life-changing leap. The Indiana countryside stretched out in a patchwork of green fields and golden light, a stark contrast to Chicago's steel and neon. Emily Carter stood at her mother's grave in Elwood's small cemetery, the late May breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and distant wildflowers. A simple headstone read Diane Carter, beloved mother, 1965 to 2022, and Emily traced the letters with her fingers, her heart full and heavy. Lily stood beside her, clutching a bouquet of daisies, her grandmother's favorite, her curls catching the sunlight. Emily's 1 hour a day experiment, inspired by Elon Musk's rule, had reshaped her life over the past month, turning her from a struggling single mom into the creator of ParentPulse, a single-parent app now boasting 3,000 downloads. But today wasn't about apps or success, it was about honoring the woman who taught her to keep going, no matter the odds. The drive from Chicago had been quiet, Lily humming along to a playlist of space-themed songs, her latest obsession. Their new apartment in Logan Square, with its clean walls and space for Lily's art, felt like a world away from this rural town where Emily had grown up. The $5,000 grant, her UI/UX design contract, and ParentPulse success had given them stability, but Jake's supervised visitation last week, awkward but uneventful, reminded Emily that some wounds healed slowly. Her speech at the Chicago Tech Summit, where she'd inspired a room of innovators, had been a high, but Alex's partnership offer still hung unresolved, a leap she wasn't sure she was ready to take. This visit to her mother's grave was a pilgrimage, a chance to reflect on how far she'd come and where she was headed. Emily knelt, placing a daisy on the grave, her throat tight. "I made it, Mom," she whispered. "Not all the way, but I'm trying." She thought of Diane in their Indiana kitchen, her hands dusted with flour, teaching Emily to paint through pain. "You don't need them to see your worth, Em," she'd said, her eyes fierce. That lesson had carried Emily through firing, eviction threats, and the custody battle, each hurdle met with 1 hour of relentless effort. ParentPulse was her proof, a lifeline for single parents, its community forum buzzing with stories of hope. A user from Uptown had written yesterday, saying the app helped her plan a family vacation, a dream she'd thought impossible. Emily's heart swelled, but doubt lingered. Could she sustain this? Was she enough? Lily tugged at her sleeve, her voice soft. "Is Grandma proud of us?" Emily hugged her tight, tears prickling. "So proud, kiddo. She's our biggest fan." They sat by the grave, Lily sketching a starry sky in her notebook, Emily journaling in hers. She wrote, "1 hour a day made me unstoppable, but love, for Lily, for Mom, for myself, kept me going." The words felt like a vow, a promise to the girl she'd been and the woman she was becoming. Chicago's skyline waited 2 hours away, but here, under Indiana's vast sky, Emily felt grounded, her roots intertwining with her dreams. Back in the car, Lily fell asleep, her sketchbook open to a drawing of a rocket ship labeled Grandma's Star. Emily drove in silence, the fields giving way to the city's sprawl, its lights flickering like the stars Lily loved. The past month flashed through her mind, the crashed app demo, the courtroom victory, the grant, the summit. Each moment had tested her, but each hour had built her. She thought of Musk's rule, its simplicity deceptive but powerful. 1 hour hadn't made her a billionaire, but it had made her unstoppable, a force shaped by love and grit. At home, the new apartment glowed with warmth, Lily's art covering the walls. Emily tucked her daughter into bed, kissing her forehead. "Dream big, kiddo," she whispered, picturing Diane's smile. She sat at the kitchen table, her notebook open, planning her next hour, maybe meditation, maybe coding a new ParentPulse feature. Her phone buzzed, and her breath caught. An email from a major tech firm, subject, acquisition offer for ParentPulse. She opened it, her hands trembling, and read, "We're impressed with your app's impact and growth. We'd like to discuss acquiring ParentPulse for $500,000, with a role for you on our team." Emily's heart stopped. $500,000. A job. It was a life-changing sum, enough to secure Lily's future, to fund college, to breathe without fear. But it meant giving up ParentPulse, her heart, her purpose. The shock of the offer was a jolt, a twist she hadn't seen coming. She closed her laptop, the city's hum seeping through the window, Chicago's restless spirit urging her to decide. She thought of Diane, saying, "Love's what leads you, Em." She'd need time to weigh this, to talk to Alex, to trust her gut. To ground the moment, Emily reflected on the science behind her journey. Dr. Sarah Lynn, a psychologist specializing in habit formation, explains, small, consistent efforts, like Emily's 1-hour rule, rewire the brain's neural pathways, building resilience and self-efficacy. Studies show that daily micro-commitments increase dopamine release, reinforcing motivation and creating a feedback loop for success. Emily's transformation wasn't magic, it was her brain adapting, hour by hour, to believe she could overcome. The city outside glowed, its skyscrapers a testament to dreams built from grit. Emily stood, her notebook in hand, and wrote one final line, "Life's full of surprises, but love, for yourself, your family, your dreams, will always light the way. She was unstoppable, not because she'd won every battle, but because she'd kept fighting, 1 hour at a time. For Lily, for Diane, for every parent her app had touched, she'd keep going, ready for whatever came next. Hey, hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story's just the start. What's 1 hour you could commit to change your life?